Wes, whenever this song comes on, if I'm like at the gym or in the car, it's just easy to groove to. And I think, all right, we're usually sharp dressed. Sometimes we're in hoodies, but we're back, man. We're the wise guys. How you been, Wes?
I'm good. And, as a guy that's on TV, I think I probably should look at myself more in the mirror because there are plenty of times in which I go on TV and it's like, this will, this will be like a 90-degree angle downward. And yeah, I'm doing well. I haven't made a fool of myself too much in the last couple of weeks. How have you been?
I got some lovely anchors on the evening, and they're constantly on the lookout for fashion faux pas that I might have.
Oh, no.
Crooked tie, popped collar. I rely on them very heavily for the looks perspective because personally, I like dressing nice. I'm doing a
Mhm.
million things, and I'm wearing this right up until about 10 minutes before show. So I go throwing the suit on, run out there, and occasionally there's just little issues. So, but no complaints.
I could not. I got to come to work with the suit on because then I'm working until the last minute. I'm like, okay, I think I figured it out. Let's go.
Yeah, I will blow through dry cleaning if I wear a suit more than I have to. But anyways, that doesn't.
New new picture here, by the way. Speaking of, this is from like 10 years ago, I think, this picture of me,
You know
almost
what's
10 years
crazy
ago.
though? Like you still have the good hairline. It still looks like you. Mine is very current. Um, but yeah, look, we like to have fun on this. We try to, and we do have some serious topics. But look, we're trying to shed light on things, to have conversation about weather. And fortunately for us, Wes, it's that time of year that weather's just never boring. I've
Yeah.
already been thwarted over the last week in a forecast. We'll get to that with respect to a rogue tornado that nobody, not the National Weather Service, not the SPC, not any local Met saw coming, but it happened and it
Are
was
you
very
sure it wasn't a
impactful.
gust tornado?
Yeah, I don't. That did not get good reviews. Using that term, but we are supposed to be the weather wise guys. You know what? In true fashion, I went back and did a lot of radar digging on that particular event, and I think I've learned a thing or two. But this is the thing about this time of year. March for us here in the South. I'm in Birmingham, West is in Kansas City. Is we start to see these very active. We were talking about this before we came on. These very active, frontal systems that kind of line up with these big waves in the jet stream. And we start to in March at least. You can have it in January and February. March, we're really starting to see this parade of mid latitude cyclones that can be, have all different aspects. We can have tornadoes here west. You can be dealing with winter weather, and there's just always something to watch.
Yeah, in March and April, we can go from like tornadoes to a blizzard. That's kind of what happened last year, like maybe once or twice in which it went from fire weather, tornadoes, then to a blizzard as cold air comes in. We could actually use a blizzard around here, personally speaking, for the winter snowfall forecast because we only have had about 10 inches of snow and we do need some moisture and we're going to get a lot of rain over the next couple of weeks, but would have really used a blizzard this year.
See a blizzard to me that's a little now you're getting very you're taking it to the next level. How about just a gentle snowfall? What's wrong with that?
That's not enough.
You
I
don't need to
need
ask for a
I need
blizzard here,
12
Wes.
inches of snow.
Trying to bury the people of Kansas City.
We would like a Rhode Island, Connecticut winter storm, and then everybody will be okay to move on to spring.
Hmm, hmm. Well, I'll tell you this: something I will not wish into place is a tornado. So we have so far in 2026. Now, I think we've shared this page before, correct, Wes? I think this is one of those kind of data sets that we've shared and talked about. It's preliminary data, very preliminary data. And what it's basically showing or giving as far as data is concerned is okay, we've had reports of tornadoes here. The National Weather Service and each individual county warned area might have different numbers, but this puts in a rough estimate of what we've had here. All right. March, obviously being the busier so far, but I thought it was interesting. We talked with Grady last year.
Mhm.
Mississippi. Do you remember in Mississippi the bullseye that he had? It was down there south of Meridian, south of Jackson. And where have we seen the tornado reports early this year. It's just one sample, but I find that very interesting.
Yeah, and I assume, like, it says 25 tornadoes so far this year in Mississippi. Maybe it's been half of that in, like, actual tornadoes that have occurred because those are just based on reports, but you can see definitely, like, there were probably a few tornadoes in that one line that goes from near the state line of Louisiana and Mississippi all the way to really near the state line of Alabama and Mississippi, but that's the spot, man, like, that is, like, tornado owl. That is, like, the king of all tornado alleys, like, in the entire country. It is right there.
That just would never have guessed that before diving in. But one of the things you look at on this map that jumps out to me, and really the last several years, is March. The focal point is much further south. Do you remember, Wes, the last time y'all had a tornado or a significant tornado in your
Mhm.
DMA in March or sometime early in the season? Has that happened?
No, it usually would have to be, like, late March. A couple of years ago when it was an overall really active, storm season for us, it was more like late March and into April, and that's when it was, like, almost every single week we were getting some type of severe weather, but significant tornado-wise, no, they just don't come up here in March.
Yeah, and that kind of goes to where the jet stream is at this point. So we're going to be in the 80s this week, Wes. We are in the ridge. We have that subtropical air mass that is it's barreling on in. It's trying to take set up across the southeast, which is pretty common this time of year. If you go up to Nashville, if you go up to Lexington, which relatively speaking, that's not too far north of here. You can get there in
Right.
half a day. It's like 38 degrees. I mean, so we clearly have that jet stream is draped across the middle of the country. You're on the cold side, the warm side, and this is where, that clash in between the air masses where we typically see the bumpy weather. And outside that, um, you saw some of that video from, what was it, a week or two ago, those tornadoes up in Illinois and Indiana.
Mhm.
That was wild. That was a bit, out of character, I feel like, for March, because that's, same latitude as you. But
Yeah, like, if you look at the climatological averages for, like, tornadoes in the Midwest, it's like it says Missouri is good for 2 tornadoes in January a year, but that's really skewed because it's like some years you give a 25-year period here, and let's say, hey, there's one year that, like, for whatever reason, there's, like, 4 tornadoes in January. Then it skews you to say, okay, then you average 1 to 2 tornadoes a year there in January. So, like, you will get these random winter, early spring tornadoes in odd places like that because the jet stream is just so active. And for a little bit of explainer here, Evan's talking about the jet stream being further south. That's because we're in winter time, and so the air is colder. As the air warms up, the sun hits the equator more directly. The jet stream then begins to build further off to the north into the Midwest, and that is generally in line with how temperatures get warmer into the spring and into the summer across the country.
I like to refer to this time of the year as and really this month as a transitional month, meaning like I don't really think there's a whole lot of stock in our averages, right? Like our average high and low, I write it down every day. All right, our average high is 63 today, our average low is 42. We're almost never in a stretch where we have those for consecutive days. We're either in a warming trend or a big cool down trend because the longer daylight. The sun's angle over us today was 47 degrees. Back at the beginning of January, West, it was 33.
You know
Okay.
that's crazy that you know the angle degrees of the sun.
I did a little like explainer of it because people were asking, is it the daylight length, or is it the sun angle that's more important? And the sun angle is a little bit more important with respect to, the overall heating because that it determines the intensity of the radiation. The day length over time kind of creates that snowball effect, right? So that's,
Mhm.
but the immediate impact is going to come from that angle of the sun. That's going to be the most beneficial in the warming trend. And now, because the sun is more directly overhead here and really everywhere in the northern hemisphere, it's intense enough to create these prolonged periods where we're much warmer, kind of like what we're in now. But because we're still technically in winter, still coming out of winter, that cold air, that really, continental polar air mass can still sink far down, even to the Gulf Coast, but really into the middle of the plains area and down to just to the south of where you're at.
So it's just warm enough, just humid enough to get tornadoes in the southeast.
Pretty much. And, you look at this map, and you said it really well. One or two. The probabilities in the first half of March, which is kind of what we're focusing on in this episode, is really geared towards the southeast. And that's kind of what I pitched to us. I said, it's interesting. Me and you always have busy, active weather, but ours can be different in the sense you can have winter weather while we have severe weather. And in March, we really have a bullseye, and really into early April too, of very active, severe weather. And yours is a little bit more delayed. Not to say it can't happen, as you mentioned, but this is where we see a lot of the active March setups is across the
Mhm.
southeast.
Yeah. And with it being a neutral year, we have La Nina, El Nino, right? Those correspond with what the ocean temperature is in a certain area of the Pacific. Since we're neutral, it's supposed to just generally say, hey, you have a chance of either being average or being really active or being really quiet, which I guess those kind of average out overall.
Yeah, this is so when we talk about El Nino, La Nina, a lot of people get this confused. They'll think of it like, oh, is it a major storm system? Is it scary? I'll go to schools and sometimes the church congregations too. They'll be like, hey, is a La Nina coming? Is an El Nino coming? Technically, you could phrase it that way. What we're looking at is a pattern in the atmosphere. Something happens with sea surface temperatures here, a low pressure goes that way there, and the jet stream alters its position and its intensity. And when we have these swings, we use these indices, this index, to determine, well, how strong is it deviating from normal? Is it weakly different, or is it, you know, significantly different from a normal atmospheric pattern? It's called teleconnection. It's one of the things that we don't fully understand. We know that there's correlations. For example, you look at some of these years, like Wes was talking about. You look at where we've had weak La Ninas, weak El Ninos, strong El Ninos. Wes, I was kind of surprised to see some of the more recent active March tornado counts have come in a weak to moderate La Nina setup.
Hmm.
Would you guess that?
No, but that is bad news for you, unfortunately.
Yeah.
My
Yeah,
gosh.
with
Because that's kind of where we're at. It's like we're neutral, but sometimes we're like leaning slightly toward La Nina.
And, to be honest, it looks neutral, but what does that mean exactly? That's one of those things we're trying to figure out. We can sometimes see definitive correlations, and it certainly seems like, the last couple of years, I've got my cursor over here. I don't know if you can see. Let's see
Hmm.
if I can draw on
Yeah,
here.
I can see it.
But so these are, let's see, January 20th or January of 2020 through 2025. Okay. So you see all those are kind of leaning La Nina, none too significant. Look at our tornado counts for March through that period. Okay. We've got some pretty significant numbers here. In fact, last year, Wes, 2025 was by far and away the record, 300 tornado reports by the SPC. Now, there's differing numbers. I've seen, 294, I've seen 307, 300. It doesn't matter. We're splitting hairs. It was the most active March of all
Hmm.
time. And if you look at this graph and just kind of take a step back and look at it, you can see a couple spikes. See one, 1976, very busy year, very active year. Outside of that, a lot of this has taken place after 2000, and more specifically after 2020. You've got some of the most active years. What do you make of that?
I think it tells me that March is very sensitive to what El Nino or what La Nina is overall. Because you'll get a very active storm track with La Nina. And it's like, all right, we're going to be getting a bunch of tornadoes. It's going to really start to show up in March. And that's what you got, right? Because, or it was 2025 was like neutral slash La Nina.
I think 2025 was very close to neutral here. So it was leaning weak, which again, if you look at this cluster here, really from 2020 onward, all of those higher months with or all those higher tornado counts within the month of March really fell with at least, I mean, it's not even significant. That's the thing with this is it doesn't look like you have to have a major swing, a major pattern shift. It looks like just the La Nina alone, weak to
Mhm.
moderate, is creating a setup that is conducive for severe weather, and specifically the ingredients necessary for tornadoes, which that goes down to the meso and micro scale, but you need the setup first, and it certainly looks like that um, setup is allowing it, which I had not realized until diving into this.
I have it ingrained in my brains. 2011, it snowed in Mississippi a couple times, and then we had that massive tornado outbreak. That was a La Nina year, so it's always been like busted into my head. Like if it snows in the South and we're La Nina, there may be a ton of tornadoes.
Do you
Yeah,
remember, Wes? We started that semester on the drill field, like playing football in the snow. Like I remember getting back
yeah.
and we were watching the national championship game, Auburn and Oregon, and that it had snowed, class was out, it was awesome, and we're
Mhm.
January. I don't even remember what day it was, but it had snowed. It was the coolest thing ever on State's campus. And then, yeah, you're right. A couple months later, we're dealing with one of the more significant outbreaks in history. And you can see right here, Wes, here's 10 and 11. I mean,
It's
look at the
hard.
significance. So, what I've taken away from looking at this, and I'm not a researcher, all right? I love to look at the numbers on the side. I really do. I love to just see the correlation. A lot of these really, really active spring early spring, late winter events have correlated. You can see 1975, 76 with some form of a La Nina. And it looks like, whether it's weak, moderate, or strong, it's been a pretty busy springtime for us, in particular, March and April. So with it being neutral, I don't know really what to take away from that. I guess what I would say is if we're neutral, we don't have as favorable a pattern doesn't necessarily mean it will yield less tornadoes, but I don't know that we're primed as well as 2025 as we will be, this particular year. I definitely kind of wager against that.
Yeah, I that's what the research has shown. There have been a bunch of studies that have done analysis of which INSO pattern you're in, tornado activity, and yeah, La Ninas produce seemingly more often than not produce more tornadoes. And so when it's neutral, maybe it's just like an average tornado year for you overall. But at the same time, that doesn't mean like every La Nina produces a lot of tornadoes. It's just sort of like I don't even know if I would call it casual, but there is some sort of correlation between the 2.
Yeah, so let's just look at a couple of these. So let's see, 97, 98, 15, 16, 82, 83. Just curious what the tornado count of March. And keep in mind, y'all, we're looking at the month of March. It's the second day of March. We thought, okay, here let's break down what we can expect as we, open the doors of springtime and severe weather season. So
Mhm.
this doesn't necessarily speak for the entire, springtime and severe weather season. But what do we say?
There's
88.
75?
Let's see. We said 85. See, now your job's got to be remember one number.
Well,
And
one was like 75. I think one was like 75, 76.
that was an active year. So 75, 76 is down here.
Yeah.
That was La Nina. So I'm trying to look at 82, 83,
Oh, okay.
97, 98,
Alright, 82, 83, 97, 98. 82, 83, 97, 98.
and I'll be 15 and 16.
82, 83, 97, 98. 82, 83, low.
Okay.
97, 98, moderate. Then you had 15.
97, 98. So, you're down here below average. Say 82, 83,
Yeah,
below
below
average.
average.
Wow. 15 and 16. Unreal. Look how low those numbers are.
It's a chill. It's a chill year.
That's
Yeah.
fascinating. So you look at these teleconnections in the effort to try to understand what we can look at because a lot of people are like, how can you not see this coming? And other people want to say they could see all of it coming. There's idiots on social media who claim to know everything, which is
So
fine. They can do
here
that.
here's what I'm reading here. El Nino's clearest enhancement in the southeast is more of a cool season, late fall, winter, with a somewhat less pronounced signal toward active spring outbreaks than La Nina. And so that's for the Southeast. For the Midwest, lower than normal. Main jet is strongest. Main jet and strongest storm track are displaced, so that Southern Plains and Central Plains have fewer robust severe weather days. Active periods still happen, but widespread plains outbreaks are less favorable overall. So less favorable for the whole country, but in the Southeast, you're more likely to have your severe weather in the fall.
Interesting. Yeah, our fall was pretty quiet. We had a sneaky November tornado. We had an EF0, EF1 that moved through in the early morning hours the week of Thanksgiving. Didn't hurt anybody, went through a wooded area. It just kind of came out of nowhere. But besides that, it was kind of dry, well, drought stricken. But, again, this is going to affect different places. Obviously, they're going to have a different influence on where you live. But just to see the whole, the number, the US total as a whole
Mhm.
down with certain scenarios and up with others is really cool and really fascinating to see. And it's just one of those things that we're still learning about and still trying to figure out, 100% how does this work? How do we predict if we're swinging into a La Nina or El Nino? And we've been talking about an ENSO neutral, which basically means we have no pronounced pattern differential, no major displaced jet one way or another, no crazy anomalies with temperature. Um, so it'll be very interesting to see what the next couple of months.
All right. So our last neutral was 2023 and 2017. So if you look at the numbers for 2023 and 2017 on tornadoes, what do they say?
That's not good. So these are the top 10 all time. Okay. So,
Maybe there is a signal. Okay, maybe there actually is a signal.
okay, how about let's go, let's see, what was 1991?
Think about another one. Um, we got we got 14 and 13. Are they up there too?
Let's see, I gotta go back to my other map because I just clipped the top 10.
Oh,
I
okay.
just
No, they're not in
zoomed.
the top. They're not in the top, so that's fine.
So, yeah,
10. There's
four,
13.
here's 14. That
Is that four?
neutral?
Is that 14?
10, 11, 12, it's 13. I guess 14 is a big drop off.
Okay. 13 was neutral. So is 14. Okay. So we're like 3 for 4 here on crazy active years with neutral.
Okay.
Uh 2007.
Uh-oh.
Was it in the top?
I think it is. Yep, 173.
All right. Okay. Then we have a nice string here from '05 to '01 where they were neutral.
I
That's
think
good. Okay, that's good.
well,
So
hold on. I had to trim it down because there was so many active years. I think those are within the top couple. So here's
there we go. That's good.
yeah, that's pretty good. You got
'01.
there, but a couple months after that, or a couple years after that, not too bad.
So it's a recency bias thing. Like is clearly as of the last decade, neutral years have been very active.
And I will say this, we do look at not everything's going to have the same answer, right? Like you can have the same setup multiple times. It doesn't mean it's going to yield the same result. However, when you look at a sample size like that, where you do have a couple and you see that correlation, that's enough to kind of give you pause. So now, seeing those numbers, which this is fun, we're just kind of breaking this down as we go. Now I'm thinking, okay, we could very well see it could be a toss up, but given the fact that recently we have had active neutral March setups, um, this could be, something to watch for. And we'll have to come back and revisit this, as we get into April and whatnot, and kind of plan to break down, that shift from the Dixie Alley, from the southeast to, the southern plains, central plains, and then all the way into June when these get, much further to the north, because that's really the evolution of the jet stream, the evolution of our severe weather season. So, man, fascinating stuff.
We got a team meeting tomorrow, so I hope I can share this information with them and be like, might be a really active tornado season according to the last 10 years of neutral. Will you go back to that top 10 chart?
Yep.
All right. Those three are all neutrals, right?
Yes, the three
Okay.
underlined. Um, the 2025 and 2022 and 2021 were all La Nina. So at least
Okay.
I don't know 76. I'd have to go back and look. I think 76 was a
Look at that.
strong La Nina. So right
Yeah.
now everything I see here is either neutral or some level of La Nina phase.
91 was neutral. 12 was La Nina. '06, I think we said was La Nina. And then 21 was La Nina. Okay. So was it like a 40% chance of it being an 40% chance of it being an active March with neutral.
Interesting. So we'll need to take these numbers really and apply them to April as well, because I'll be curious to see like how does this, correlate with, you know, you guys and in other areas once we get into April. Does it have a swing? Is there a better chance of there being, a lot of tornadoes in April with more of a neutral versus La Nina? Does it continue? It would make
Yeah,
sense to me that
yeah.
it would be applicable everywhere, right? Like if we have a busy March in a La Nina, that would stay true to April and May. But
Mhm.
I don't know that for certain until we kind of look at the numbers. But interesting.
So our tornado forecast what should we make our tornado forecast?
We should
Chance
do.
for
We should.
above average tornadoes?
I would say, all right, let's look at the past, you know, couple of years. So obviously, going back to 2020, we've got three of the top 10 busiest, and then if you tack on the last 10 years, um, I mean, 2025, 22, 23, 2017, 2021. Five of the top 10 have all happened in the last decade.
Mhm.
Um, I would say maybe we end up just outside. I don't think we crack the top 10 with this, but I do think it'll be, relatively active. Let's say, you know, 115 tornadoes in March, um, for the country,
Okay.
tornado reports. So and again, these are all preliminary. These what you're seeing here are final. 2022 back where there's no asterisks. But what about you? What do you think? I just threw something at a dartboard.
Okay, well, technically, what's it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 4 of the last over the last 25 years, 4 of the top 7 most active tornado seasons have been in neutral years. So if we think that there are like if we work with the assumption that the number of March tornadoes in general, right? Because we're just looking at March, have increased, then this would be an above average March for tornadoes.
Yep. So what is technically the average here? Let me see. I think I got that. So 80.1 is the 30-year average. So 30-year average would say, we're going to get 80 tornadoes. So me saying 115, that's a good deal up. That puts it right about here. So that would put us even with, 1963. It put us, beneath that 76, but that puts us in, an upper echelon of that. So would you go over under 115?
Okay. 115 it is.
Okay. So we'll see.
That is bad news for our sleep schedules, is what that is.
Oh yeah. But again, this isn't even taking into consideration the fact that look at how many years prior to 1990 fall well below that, and I do believe that is a sign of not more tornadoes occurring, although there seems to be, but the lack of reporting and the inability to detect them on radar.
Mhm.
So that kind of skews this as well. I think that's why they did the average of 91 to 2020 because the WSR 88, I believe, came out late 80s, and that's when we started getting better radar data. So the 1991 to 2020 probably accounts for that. It also cuts out the really skewed data that that comes afterwards, which is 2021, 22, 23, and 25, which would probably throw this average closer to 100. So
Good thought process. We thought that one out.
that was fun, man. I like that stuff. Uh, so with that in mind, let me tell you what happened. What happened last week, Wes. So
I
we
Evan, before you get on this, I just want you to know this is like probably happened to everybody at some point in their career, in which just like you just having a day, like you're just doing the weather, right? You're like, oh, that's a tornado. Oh, okay.
so you want to know the craziest part about it, and this is what really frustrates me. So my assistant news director, right? She's texting me.
You're super news director. Nice.
Assistant news director.
Oh, assistant. Oh, okay. Okay. Okay.
Assistant. Um, she's texting me. She goes, "Hey, another station's on." At this point, they were on because we had this was one of the more active hail days that I had
Mm-hmm.
seen in quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
Again, swing and a miss. That was not. I just didn't see a big hail threat. I look back at the sounding, and I'm like, okay, I guess it kind of makes sense that we ended up having hail, but it was not a classic setup day. It just wasn't. And I texted her back and I said, "Hey, um, trust me, if there's a reason to go on the air, we will." Well, little did I freaking know that saying that 15 minutes later, we have something on the ground. We don't know what. And my initial thought is, oh, it had to be a microburst. A sudden, we've got these hail cores, right? So thunderstorm, it all of a sudden collapses.
Okay.
The hail, everything else comes down, 70-mile-an-hour wind gust, and boom, you got it. Um, all of a sudden I start seeing damage. I'm thinking, okay, what's going on here? And people are sending messages, and all of a sudden the 4 o'clock news starts, and I'm still unsure of what happened. We were under no watch. There was no tornado warning issue, and people are swearing that there was a tornado, including the fire department. We heard it on the scanner. A tornado had come through Trussville, had crossed Highway 11, very busy thoroughfare just outside of Birmingham. And I kind of pushed back. I said, "No, this had to have been a wind gust. I mean, there was not a classic radar signature with it. Nothing crazy like that." Um, but then I started to get pictures, and a uh, there was indeed a tornado west. It was an EF0. It had a path of just a couple miles, but in that couple miles, it did a decent amount of damage, trees, power lines, and I had to go on and basically apologize, and rightfully so. I mean, we missed it. I kind of pushed back against it, and then next thing you know, you got people uprooted from their homes or having to clean up or not having power. And it was just one of those events where I was like, you got to learn, from this.
Well,
And
so this to rewind here, there a tornado warning for this thing?
nope, in fact,
So it's not like so let's say the other TV stations that your news director was seeing or going on, did they go on just for hail?
to my
Or they
knowledge,
just got
yes.
lucky. They just got lucky that it actually ended up being a tornado and they were on
So
for it.
they were on it about an hour before this. When this was much further back, it was creating hail. So you could probably see the hail core in here. This is my radar scope screenshot where you see the
Mhm,
pinks and purples.
mhm.
There's your hail core. This is right when it basically touched down. Now there was never, Wes, and I've looked at a lot of radar. There was never a very definitive signature with this. The gate to gate here was about 10 miles an hour to 26,
Mhm.
27. That's not a very strong looking signature to me. I don't know what your thoughts are on that. Um,
Hindsight's 2020, so my brain is like, "Well, yeah." Yeah,
so
so I don't think I could really give a fair assessment other than you have to go look at the other levels of the scan and see what it's looking like in the mid levels.
yeah, so that was the best looking return velocity signature. So essentially what ended up happening is you had a microburst, right?
Mhm,
See where Pinson is?
mhm,
The microburst started there, and people were really upset about this because they thought they were in a tornado. And I understand, wind damage. You hear a tornado report, a lot of people want to say they were in a tornado. But Pinson, there was a microburst. Those areas are probably about 10 miles apart, maybe. They kind of border each other. Center Point, Pinson, Trussville. Right where you see that hook, right where Trussville is, that is where the tornado touched down very briefly.
mhm.
So, right in here. So, somehow, I think, and I'm still trying to figure this one out, the microburst, it caused those outbound winds or those winds going towards the radar away from the storm to accelerate. And of course, we still had a clear inbound or inflow, right? There's nothing south of this storm. So good inflow into the storm. You have the microburst, which is now, creating a really strong outflow. I feel like somehow that had to help create this tornado very briefly. What would you think about something like that?
Okay, so just to understand here, there was a microburst near Pinson.
Yes.
Okay. So, maybe that enhanced your rear flank downdraft? Like, maybe that really caused yeah, huge motion of downward and, I guess maybe what goes up, what must come down, and so as you see this huge dumping, maybe that caused an area of low pressure to form somehow, because that's one of the 2 ideas of tornadic formation is that you have the rear flank downdraft and the updraft, and either the area of low pressure forms there and the tornado spins up, or the updraft sucks up the horizontal vorticity and then it turns into a vertical tube of vorticity in general. So that would be my guess is that you had a super enhanced rear flank downdraft. I don't know if like let's say you just take the wind, like what happens if you push the wind out horizontally? Because there is a way to get a like to get a gust NATO, right? Like there's a way to get a gust NATO where if you're on the leading edge of a storm front, where you can get it to spin up a little vertical tornado there that's super weak, but it'll toss around planes and like it'll toss around maybe not quite destroying homes, but relatively light things can get tossed around from gust tornadoes. And so I guess those are your 2 options, right? But we eliminated Gus NATO and thought it was a real tornado, and so maybe it is that that rear flank downdraft was just crazy enhanced, and that caused the tornado to form with the updraft already there.
Yeah, thinking on it, a lot of people said, we never had the classic signature. Our National Weather Service, we've talked about this before on this, podcast is both our office and the offices that you use there in Kansas City are among the best with the lowest false alarm rates. They're fantastic offices, and they don't miss many. This was not a classic day for a wind profile to set up. So that's I'm trying to think outside the box here of what could have led
Mhm,
to this. And that's really the only thing I have. The other thing is, with it being so shallow, the radar beam at this point was about 1900 feet. Stands to reason if this was a really low-based circulation that best signature may have been beneath where we were seeing with the radar beam and just something we missed. It happened so fast. We were
mhm.
so focused, I know I was on the hail aspect. Um, but this was a road one, this is one that I'll be thinking about for a while, and, another example of it's March. We weren't even in a margin well, we they bumped us up to a marginal risk that morning, but it was for hail and wind, and that ended up being a day where we had golf ball size hail across half the DMA. Um, so always something to learn in this business.
So is that what it was producing was golf ball size hail? Okay.
Mhm.
So that's why other people were getting on TV talking about it because the hail was just that big.
Yeah. So, and I had neglected to get on TV. I don't necessarily think at the time I didn't think we were having much golf ball size hail report. Again, this was a swing and miss, I think, on my part. But after seeing those reports, people were pulling off to the inner side of the interstate,
Mhm,
with these damaged windshields. And again, we just don't get it down. We get a lot of pea-sized hail. It's just a lot of moisture in the atmosphere, but we don't necessarily have those really strong updrafts to sustain them like you see in the Great Plains. But, yeah, that's why they were on, and then all of a sudden this happened, it took everybody by surprise, and the second we said Gus NATO, that ooh, not good, not good.
I mean, to be fair, if there was golf ball size hail coming through through my metropolitan area, I don't think I would necessarily be rearing to go on TV for that. I mean, like, it just it kinda comes with the territory.
Yeah,
Like, you get a
right.
thunderstorm coming through, like, okay, it's gonna hail. If it gets bigger than golf ball, that's you're like, "Alright, we should probably do something, and we should probably say something that's gonna
Yeah,
happen."
and this was about the golf ball reports came minutes before the, microburst and then the tornado report. So that was kind of the max was this storm right here, and that's kinda why I was thinking, "Okay, we have this golf ball size hail come down, really strong downdraft, accelerating the winds out of one part of the storm, and you had the inflow coming in," and that's what made me think we had a really low level circulation,
Mhm.
really low base, like mesocyclone, and that brief I have a couple pictures of the not on this computer, but a couple pictures of this very, very narrow funnel you can see, um, little rope tornado. So,
And, just going back to that radar image, like, if you have a supercell, though, clearly, so you have, like, a tilted updraft, and so, plainly on velocity, like, yeah, it's gonna look like there is some rotation because the storm is slowly rotating. But maybe it wasn't rotating through all the levels of the atmosphere in order for the National Weather Service to be like, "Oh, that's a tornado." Right? Like, yes, like, storms that have hail, especially golf ball size hail, are rotating storms. You don't really get like, I don't think that really occurs, So, like, there should have been some sort of rotation signature on that. That's not me saying, like, "Well, duh, there's a tornado." It's like, no, like, every hail-producing storm is going to be spinning.
yeah. So, that's another good lesson. In order to have hail develop, you have to have a sustained updraft, and the only way to really sustain an updraft is to have a really good inflow or, more, practically is you have rotation and that keeps the updraft going. It allows the hail to kind of go in this perpetual motion, build in size before it ultimately falls. So, yeah, this was an interesting one for sure, one that I'll remember and of course learn from. But
Yeah.
we're just at the threshold doorway of severe weather season as we talked about.
Well,
So,
while it was hailing there, I guess not at the same time, we were all relearning grapple? I still
oh,
don't know how to say it. I still don't know
grapple.
how to say it.
I forgot about that.
But it was sleeting and grappling here on Saturday no, on Sunday afternoon, and people there was so much thunder and lightning, people were like, "It's hailing these, like, tiny things." I was like, "I know it's very confusing, but that's actually not hail. That is." It was grappling and sleeting at the same time. It was really cool. You could see the difference between, like, the white and the translucent, stones that hit the ground. It's really
That's
cool.
wild. So for all that thunder lightning, I guess you had a decent like warm layer somewhere, right? Like how that's crazy. I have not seen a sleet grapple event with a lot of lightning in a while.
Well, it's because there's a bunch of ice in the cloud. There's a ton of ice up there, and it's falling through, and so you're getting, ice particles hitting each other, charging each other up, and then they discharge as thunder and lightning. So it's I don't know if, like, thunder sleet is more likely than thunder snow. It probably is.
Thunder sleet.
Yeah, because if you have snowflakes hitting each other, I mean, it has to be super intense snow to get thunder snow, but it's probably easier to get thunder sleet than it is to get thunder snow because you have harder ice particles hitting one another.
Right, right. And the electrification or those charges that come off of them every time they're hitting together. It's another fascinating topic. We do some cool stuff. We
Uh,
study some cool stuff.
Maybe we can talk about that one next week. I'll bring my pictures of my ice.
Yeah, please do. And then we'll kind of focus on maybe the back half. We'll kind of wrap up March, do like a little talk about that thunder sleet. I think that's good. And you know, if by this point we have any more, outbreaks. Doesn't look like there's a favorable one, at least in the short term. But hey, never say never.
We'll see about
But
Friday. And today, on TV, I did say this does not look like a tornado outbreak, so therefore, there's going to be a tornado outbreak on Friday. That is how it works when I say something, or any weatherman for that matter says something
100%.
is not going to happen. the chances have just doubled that it's going to occur.
It's like the weather gods are like, "Oh, yeah? Oh, yeah? This guy, he think he knows." Oh, man. Tell him. Always interesting. So, this is good stuff, man. I had a
Yeah,
blast doing this, looking at, some of the I feel like I we taught ourselves something. How about it?
I'm going to mentally prepare ourselves for a very busy March because that's how. Hey, man, if this week or next week and a half is any indication of the whole month, we just correctly analyzed. Uh,
1:15 is the what we went.
Gosh,
Alright.
we'll
Well, it's
see.
set in stone. We'll revisit this next time, learn a little bit about your, thunder sleet, we talk some of those, ice processes because that just made my mind open up to all this other stuff, lightning strikes, indicators of increasing or decreasing intensity with
Yeah,
thunderstorms. Good stuff. Good
yeah.
stuff.
It's been a pleasure.
We're the Weather Wise guys. Always learning something.